You often see cymatics, which are sound and liquids showing patterns due to sound vibrations, used as proof for certain frequencies being healing. Here we compare 432 Hz cymatic pattern to a 440 Hz. And this is beautiful physics, but to really understand healing frequencies, we have to study the psychology and biology of those frequencies, not just physics detached from the biology. There is some interesting research combining cymatics with cellular activity like sonocytology, but it's an emerging field. So in which cases is cymatics useful? You might have seen this video where I go into what is cymatics, a short introduction exploring standing waves and exploring sound. What is sound? And basically what cymatics does, it takes sound, studies it in a closed environment and looks at the patterns that emerge as standing waves. To be more specific, cymatics then focuses on certain types of surfaces. So for instance, the cymascope focuses on a circular dish with water inside, and the lines that we get to see are these what's called the modes of a standing wave, meaning the parts which are not moving whereas the rest is moving. I'll go a bit deeper into this and frequencies in my channel, where I explain these a bit more intuitively. But it's before we go into the what are the practical aspects, you can see that it's very artistic mainly. And that's what it is so far. We've mentioned Sonocytology, which is the visualization, cellular activity as sound or as vibrations, and it comes up with these very nice patterns. So yes, it has an artistic aspect, which can have some links, like depending on the form that you're vibrating, it will create certain patterns. Like here, if you take something that resembles a turtle shell, it might come up with patterns that turtles have on their back. And then if you take the cymascope, you will have these circular representations. Then if you have a guitar, you'll have these different patterns that are relating to the guitar's body or any other instruments. However, for some practical applications, this research was suggesting that you could look at imaging cells and you can actually see visually which cells are healthy and which are unhealthy or cancerous. And it suggested that this can help surgeons quickly identify with a visual which are the unhealthy cells that they have to get rid of. The thing is that here the application is dependent on trusted methods of sensing. So here they suggest to apply cymatics with Raman spectroscopy. And for instance, here there's a Raman histology method that gets samples from the tissue that is affected by tumor and is able to color grade depending on the healthiness of the cell. And then if you want, you could visualize this information with a cymascope. So as mentioned, the cymatics patterns is dependent on the room in which, or the surface, the object that is vibrating. And so for instance, in the case of acoustics in a room, the standing wave can be something like this, where a speaker would create this sort of pattern depending on the room size. And so if your goal is to represent that standing wave in a pattern that looks like this, that could be a nice artistic goal, but it's not necessary for dealing with standing waves in rooms. For instance, the other methods of visualizing sound, such as the Schlieren effect, which is this cool effect looking at air density. It's air density changes, and this is very cold, this is very warm. You can see sound patterns coming, reflecting off a surface, diffracting. You can put some color filters and see the differences, density, air pressure density variation. And here, this is a very interesting one, is acoustic levitation. Here, ultrasound is used, standing wave ultrasound, and you can levitate little spheres. And here it's being visualized not with cymatics, but with the Schlieren optics. And a very cool combination of these concepts of something that looks like cymatic patterns and levitation is that of engineering biological cells into a certain form. This seems to be an important problem in the engineering of hearts and heart cells. And here they've devised a way using Fourier transform with ultrasound with three sources. So it is the formation of a 3D pattern with sound, ultrasound, for myoblasts, which are heart cells. And you see that the problem that they're trying to solve here is to create the correct amplitude and phase between these three sources such that it achieves the form that is desired. And so first they're doing this in gel. The ultrasound is sent through the gel, as you see here, uses complicated maths to create forms, and they are suggesting of using Fourier transform techniques, either from the form, the shape that you want, inverse the required frequencies from the three angles to make up that form, vice versa. You see, inverse Fourier transform or Fourier transform. Look at this cool 3D bird. In the similar vein, there are some researchers that placed these heart cells in gel again on a plate, like Chladni plates, and based on the frequency, they were able to arrange the heart cells in a desired pattern. So what they're suggesting is that sound frequencies are an effective and not harmful way to arrange heart cells. As mentioned, there are many visualization methods for looking at sound, which can be useful, for instance, in the making of guitar instruments and see if the body is the way you want it. Here, the shining laser, it's called laser Doppler vibrometer, to look at the vibrations of the body of the guitar. And so this is a different method that shoots a laser towards the vibrating object, and the same laser is split into one that's shot towards the vibrating object and one that receives it, which can compare the returning reflected laser, like this one. It comes back with certain deviations. That's the Doppler effect. These deviations are then compared because of the interferences between the original laser and the returning reflected laser. And this allows to track the vibrations and visualize it. So in essence, it is possible that the future of cymatics research derives methods to make use of these patterns, these cymaglyphs. But it seems that Stuart Reid, who invented the cymascope, which displays sound in these liquid patterns using quartz discs, he seems to be more interested in how these geometrical patterns are related in different parts of the universe and in the world. So here, an application for cymatics for him is at the top of Saturn, which has some sort of geometrical pattern that could be looked at with the cymascope. So I would say cymatics research is quite new and an emerging field, and its applications are not clear because there are already a lot of sound visualization methods available, but its main take is the 3D geometry that we can observe through the cymascope. You let me know in the comments, how do you think cymatics can be applied? Maybe it's all about sacred geometries, which is what it tends to be associated with, basically geometrical patterns that are appearing in nature and sacred texts. The inspiration for Stuart Reid was to understand why the acoustics of the pyramids healed his pain, his chronic pain. You can see it in the lecture that I was looking at there, that he speaks about that. He's also mentioned how we can see patterns that are perceived through vibration, through the cymascope. He had an example in a lecture where he recorded the dolphin's reflections and looked at it in a cymascope, which turned out to have the form of a human because there was a scuba diver in the dolphin's field of vision. And this object, which was the scuba diver, was reflected in the sound pattern and therefore visualized in the cymascope. So you let me know, what are the applications do you think that cymatics brings to the future? Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, because I'd love to hear what is the next topic you'd like me to talk about. Make sure to see the original video where the introduction of this video is from, where I'm exploring the science of sound frequencies and which are healing. So really I look into sound therapy and whether 432 Hz is actually healing in itself, which the evidence is here and there, not that clear yet. Make sure to subscribe.
I'll see you soon.